You alright guys, welcome back to another video. In this video I want to talk about a few service items that some people get wrong when maintaining their Freelander 2. At the back of the car, and we're going to talk all things diesel filter, and I applaud you, do not buy cheap fuel filters. First of all, before I go into that, let me explain how a diesel filter works. The fuel comes from the fuel tank, goes into this port here. You'll have a pipe connected to it, then gets dropped into this filter, diesel gets filtered out, and then gets sucked to the engine via this pipe here. When the diesel is cold, a certain amount of it gets passed back from the high pressure fuel pump through to this return line. Because it's been through the high pressure fuel pump, the diesel's all nice and warm, so it gets dropped back into the fuel filter to warm up the fuel filter and warm up the diesel within it. Once it's reached its optimum temperature of whatever the engine's decided, the diesel will then get passed through back to the tank, so it won't drop into this filter anymore. So it keeps the diesel at a particular temperature which is optimum for the engine. You see, the issue with cheap nasty filters is this doesn't work. It's either missing its internals or it's stuck open. So all that happens is any warmed diesel that gets passed through here that should eventually go back to the tank once it's warmed up just keeps on getting dropped into the canister, keeps getting dropped in. Eventually your car will notice the increase in diesel temperature. It will reduce the performance to try and cool it down, and then if that doesn't work, which ultimately it won't because this pattern will keep continuing, it will go into limp mode to save itself, and at that point you've got no option but to pull over to the side of the road. A lot of people get confused by this issue, and it's just because of a cheap fuel filter. Even if you take your car to the garage, I would go to the point of either supplying the diesel filter or confirming with the garage what make is being used for your car, because if they don't know, or they say just a real cheap brand or something like that, get your own or walk away from that garage, because it's not worth it, because you will have problems. Some of the decent manufacturers out there of diesel filters, first off is obviously genuine Land Rover filters. If you can get one from Land Rover, go down that route. Yes, it will cost a few pennies more, but at least you'll have the knowledge that your car will be happy with the fuel filter. Another manufacturer is Perflex. They're the people that make the Land Rover ones, so you can save a few pennies, get a Perflex one. Cooper's, Febby Bilstein, and then there's this one which is a Bosch. I think people have found out that Bosch ones are Perflex. So any one of them companies, you'll be happy as Larry to get a fuel filter from, and they will work as they should work. Anything else out there, I wouldn't touch with a barge pole, because the chances are you will have problems. On the subject of fuel filters, if you want to know what we're using to kind of bleed air out of our fuel filter, I do think I've shown this in another video. Our video of how to change the diesel filter is actually done really well. It got randomly picked up by Google, and yeah, it keeps getting viewed. The thing is, we were using a hand bulb in there, which is perfectly fine, and it worked. It was just a bit awkward. We've now changed to this giant syringe, silver line syringe setup, in the fact of this pipe just connects to the return line. So the one that goes back to the tank, you can kind of put that on like so, and then kind of pull fuel through. So that way fuel gets pulled from the tank into this part, fills up the canister, and then I believe it heads round to the high pressure fuel pump and then gets dragged back round. So you know that once this pipe is bubble free, like it's got fluid in it that's free of bubbles, just keep pulling it through until it's free of bubbles, then you know that it's bled correctly. Even if there's a little bit of air in this section, it doesn't matter, because obviously this is the return line going back to the diesel tank, so a little bit of air here doesn't matter because it won't reach the injectors at that point. But at least you'll know that this section in and this section going to the high pressure fuel pump will be completely full of diesel with no air bubbles in it. So yeah, I thought I'd throw that in to help you out if you're looking at changing your diesel filter.